Happy Camper Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show, the only place to be when you're ready to talk camping. Camping is what we're about. Camping is all we talk about. It's episode 204. Got a wonderful episode for you today. In fact, we're going to be talking to Rick Saez. He's a fellow podcaster and book author, and he's going to be talking about a brand new book he has coming out upcoming next month. So stick around for it. It's a great interview, a great episode. We do it right. We've got it lined up for you right here on Happy Camper Radio.
Happy Camper Radio.
And, of course, the Happy Camper Radio Show can be heard all around the world by great listeners just like yourself. You can find us in the iTunes Store, on Podbean, MyRoGuide, Stitcher, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, and now on Spotify. Go to www.happycamperradio.com. That's where you're going to find all of our social media icons. You click on any one of them, and you'll connect right up with us. Well, Mr. Wonderful is back in the studio.
Daniel Pitts.
Hey, there I am.
Hey, yeah, Daniel, how you been, man?
I'm okay. I didn't know my name until they said that, so whew,
No,
good thing
that just woke you up.
it did.
I saw you over there
I was
dozing
in a trance.
off.
I was looking at all this nice technical gear you got here.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, top notch. I love it.
Well, we built this thing from scratch.
We did.
I'll tell
It's
you what.
amazing how far it's come.
It sure has. One of these days you'll be honored to sit over there in the booth.
Yeah,
so-
one of the days I'll sit where you sit. That's the goal.
Okay, you'll get there. You'll get there eventually, and maybe I'll have an elaborate camping outfit like you have someday.
There you go. Yeah, pop-ups.
Yeah. You haven't used that in a while, have you?
No, we haven't. We need to.
Yeah, I would say it's about time you pull that out of the garage, maybe clean it up a little bit. And,
Well, we're about to go to Hawaii, so you can't bring a pop-up to Hawaii. But
you can put it on the cruise ship.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
So
I think I'll
you're
do that.
going to drive from here to Seattle,
No.
put your truck and your pop-up on the...
Yeah, very cost-effective.
Yeah, okay. And once you get over there on the cruise ship, you just go ahead and park over there on the sandy beach. And
I wonder if they even have campgrounds over there. It's so, everything's so squished together. I don't even know if they have campgrounds.
I would have
Maybe for
expected
tents
you
or something.
I would have expected you to look that up by now.
Well, after this last time, I ain't doing tents no more. I like it nice and cool in my pop-up. I like the air, blowing in my face. I like climate control.
This is the second time you've been to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I got married there, and this is our 10th anniversary trip.
Okay.
Yep.
Never been there.
It's nice. It's really nice.
Because if I
Very
was going to
pretty.
be in Hawaii, I would have already made sure that there would be a campground somewhere that I could afford to go to, and I would bring everything with me.
Well, I know there's national park, but there's probably, I don't know. I mean, why would you get a camper if you're on an island? You know what I mean? It kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe a tent so you could take it on a plane or whatever, but I don't really see the point in having a camper on an island. I don't even think they sell campers on an island.
Well, there's a lot of people that live over there, and I would imagine some of them are campers.
Well,
Probably
let us
some
know,
listeners to the show.
Yeah, let us know. If you're from
you're-
Hawaii, let me know if they have campers over there.
Yeah, just get in touch with us here at the show, and Daniel would be more than happy to talk with you.
Yeah, tell me what I'm supposed to do over there.
Well, Daniel, on the show today, we're going to be talking with Rick Saez, and he is a fellow podcaster and book author, and he has a brand new book that's coming out next month, and he is here to talk about it today. We've got Rick right here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. Let's get him on the phone right now.
Happy Camper Radio. Happy Camper Radio.
Rick, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Excited.
Glad to have
be
you
here.
on the show. Daniel is here with us in the studio, and we're here today to talk about an upcoming book that you have called Trails to the Top, and it's all about the outdoors. And, of course, we're all part of the outdoors. That's how we live our lives. I wouldn't have it any
That's
other
right.
way. But tell us a little bit about your book and what listeners and our readers have an opportunity to experience when they get a copy.
Yeah, so I've been in the outdoor industry for over 30 years. I've had roles with brands like JanSport and Eagle Creek. I was a sales guy at Eagle Creek. I was a product guy at JanSport. I'm also a photographer, so I spent some time with LowPro. So I've been, in the industry on various brands and sales roles, like I said. And it's been a great career for me. I stumbled into the outdoors when I was a kid. My grandfather would take me fishing and hiking and whatnot, and just loved the outdoors like a lot of us do, and was looking for a way to make a living at it, and stumbled on a degree in outdoor recreation. So I got my undergrad, and then I went on to get a master's in the outdoor recreation field, and here we are 30 years later with a great career. And I decided to do a podcast about the industry and kind of share the stories of the folks in the industry. And the book is basically a compilation of the conversations I've had with the various people I interviewed on the podcast. Basically tells their stories of how they got into the industry, some of the advice they have for people that want to get into the industry, or if you already have a career, to grow your career, grow your business. And it'll be about 50 chapters, volume 1, from some brand leaders like the founders of Eagle Creek, marketers, sales reps, all kinds of folks.
You've had a lot of experience, obviously, and it's for as many chapters as the book is involved in. I can imagine it's a wide open world out there, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is, really is. It's interesting when you look at the people that I've come across over my career. I mean, it's everything from store owners to, like I said, founders of businesses, big brands like Eagle Creek, and kids on the floor, sales reps, marketing folks, just a wide range of people. And then I was a river guide for a while too, so I've got some outdoor adventure guides in there and some outdoor photographers in there. And actually, the podcast is well over 175 episodes now, so I had to kind of pare the book back a bit. So there'll probably be 2, if not 3 or 4 volumes of it, just to get all the stories in.
Do you find that a lot of the outdoor industry involves camping and backpacking?
Oh yeah. It's the outdoor industry is a bit broader reach. I mean, when you go to the outdoor trade show, it's everything from rock climbing brands to ice chest brands and everything in between. But yeah, a lot of everybody. I think all of us camp. I mean, regardless of what activity you're going outside to do, rock climbing, paddling, you all spend the night on the ground somewhere or in a tent before you start that activity. So we all camp in some form or another.
And that's how Daniel and I pretty much got hooked up here with Happy Camper Radio, because he became my neighbor not too long after I moved into the neighborhood. And one of the very first things we found out we had in common was camping. And that's, even when we're not doing the show, and I think Daniel can agree with this, we sit down and have good conversations about being in the outdoors and camping.
Well, I like to be in a pop-up, so yeah, you can have your tent. I only get in the tent if I have to. I've got a little bit of a question. How much contact do you have with like smaller companies like Z-Pack or Ultralight or like a tent maker like Big Agnes or something? Do you have contact with people like that? Because I know I'm more into the backpacking part of camping, and I went to Trail Days last year, and they had a bunch of different companies like Darn Tough and a bunch of other companies that I just mentioned before. And I was just wondering, have you had any contact with that? And what is it like for a small business to get their foot in the door in in this environment?
Yeah, I have a lot of contact with some of those guys. A couple of the brands you mentioned, Big Agnes and Darn Tough, aren't so small anymore. I remember when Darn Tough came on the scene about 10 or 15 years ago. They were very small, but they've come a long way. Yeah, there's a couple of ways for brands to get started. I mean, one is obviously to start your product. These days there's a million ways, actually, with Kickstarter and all that. But a lot of people have a better mousetrap idea, how to make a product better, so they launch a brand. And a lot of times they'll go to some of these events like Trail Days, PCT Days out here on the West Coast, some of these other small events, and get their first exposure to the consumer. Or they'll go down to their local outdoor retailer shop and make the pitch to the owners and get their products in the door that way. So there's a bunch of different ways. The big show, Outdoor Retailer, happens a couple times a year. That's a pretty big commitment, but even so, if you commit to a 10 by 10, there's a lot of new brands that show up there every year with, that's kind of their first entry into the industry. They've spent a bunch of money on getting their product and their samples and their marketing materials all dialed in, and then they go to the show with a 10 by 10 and get exposed to thousands of consumers, not consumers, but thousands of buyers. So there's a bunch of ways to get exposed, and it's fun to meet those people because they have that glint in their eye, and they have a better mousetrap, so to speak. And there's some pretty cool new products, and a lot of those new products also just start out as cottage industries and stay small just build, almost build to suit kind of products. So it's pretty cool.
Is that like the CES of the outdoor retailing thing? And if so, like where could like just a normal person like me or Skip go and check out all these new things? Because there's one thing me and Skip like as much as camping, it's gear, and we love gadgets.
Yeah, we all love that gear, don't we?
We could go
the
a long
outdoor
way
retail
with that
shows-
conversation. Yes.
Yeah, we could go down a rabbit hole with gear that we'd talk for hours. Yeah. Outdoor retail is the biggest. There's some other small ones around the country. Some are consumer facing, some are not. Outdoor retailer is not a consumer show. That's an industry show. So you either have to be connected to the industry, like have a brand, have a business, or media. You can get into this media. But some of the other smaller shows, there's consumer shows and other individual rep shows that go on around the country. But outdoor retail is definitely the biggest.
Could we get in there as a podcast? I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. Yep. you
Okay.
could, yep.
Where's this at?
It's in Denver. Go to outdoorretailer.com.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, we're good.
Skip, we're going to Denver.
Okay, on your dime.
There you go.
Hey, we got Frontier.
Let me
We
know.
got
I'll show you around
Frontier.
and introduce you to some folks.
Are you in Denver?
No, I'm in Bishop, California. But
Okay.
I go to that. I've been going to that show. Gosh, I think I've only missed 2 of those shows over
Really?
the course of my career.
And
Yeah,
you
I've been
go
going
as a
long time.
podcaster? You go as a
Sorry, say
podcast?
again?
You go as a oh yeah, you work in the industry. I forgot. I was thinking you have a podcast.
Yeah, these days, it's kind of different for me now. I mean, I've been, like I said, I was director of sales at Eagle Creek for a long time, so I've been on the back end of going to those shows and setting up the booth and whatnot. And now to go as a media guy is completely different.
Really? They
I'm
give you
learning
goodie
a ton
bags
on
and
how to
stuff.
be a media guy.
Do you get goodie bags like CES? Like all kinds of free sample
Yeah,
stuff?
sort of. Yeah, a lot of people have swag to give out, but they
Yeah.
don't give you a goodie bag, but
Oh,
there's swag available.
I always love
Yeah.
swag.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Rick. There's a big age difference between Daniel and I. I think
Yeah.
when Daniel gets to be about my age, I think he's going to be slowing down a little bit. And I sit here and I listen to him talk even outside the show. And he's talking about all this new gear and this name brand stuff that I've never heard of before. And maybe it's the old fashioned guy in me, and my mind is on Coleman all the time, because that's the grandfather of camping right there. And
Right.
but yeah, it's really interesting to hear that there is so much available out there to the outdoor industry. And I mean, it's a learning process
it's
for me,
amazing.
and I've been doing this show here for about 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's interesting. The last, I guess, about 5 years ago now, the outdoor show was pretty standard and pretty typical. All the old brands were there, Coleman and the North Face and all those folks, And there was this upshoot space in the show called Venture Out, which was where some of these new, young, and up and coming brands were showing up, and these guys were doing some pretty cool new takes on old product, right? They were redesigning it, bright new colors, and now that's a huge part of the show. I mean, it's got its own floor, and there's all kinds of new stuff. There's even brands in there now that are kind of, the original Venture Out brands. They're kind of the old guys of the Venture Out section. So it's old and new alike, and it's all very cool stuff. I mean, even some of the old brands are doing some new things with, ice chests and stoves and whatnot. Tents have come a long way. But some of the takes that these young kids have on the product these days is very cool and very innovative.
I'd like to see something like that come to the Atlanta area because, I mean, this is a big convention city out here. I mean, and there's tons and tons of conventions that come to Atlanta each and every year. And back in my law enforcement days, I used to work part-time jobs at some of the convention halls. But of all the years that I have worked, the only thing, the closest I have ever come to being with the outdoors was like the RV show. And of course, I was glued to those things.
See, the outdoor space hasn't really, there aren't a lot of consumer shows. I mean, there's a handful, but it's the outdoor industry, outdoor retail shows very targeted towards the industry itself. There's a lot of, workshops and things that go on for retailers and brands on how to do things better. And then the brands, this is where a lot of the order writing gets done, right? All these retailers come to the show and they write orders at the show for all the stuff that they're gonna sell the next season. So it's all debuts of new products, orders get written. And then there's an offshoot of this around the country, which are individual sales rep shows where like in the up and down the East Coast, there's some sales rep shows where the sales reps go in and they'll rent a small convention hall or a small auditorium and set up their booths and again show to the buyers to write orders. There's not a lot of consumer-facing activity because you see it all in the stores. It's just all, I think the outdoor industry does a great job of exposing the retailers to the new products, and then boom, a few months later, it's in the shops.
I am one who is never too shy about buying new gear, and if I see something out there that I know that I'm going to use, most likely I'm going to buy it. But it's funny as you spend more and more time in the outdoors, you accumulate more and more things. And there are times I can go back into my storage unit and I look back there and go, wow, do I really need all this for a single guy who goes camping and does not take anybody with him? There's just so much stuff out there. And here's the thing, and I get teased about this all the time, is when I go camping, I take everything with me. I leave nothing behind. Because I have always believed in, if you forget something, it's going to be that one thing you're going to wish you had, and you had to run out and get a replacement. So that's just the way it works for me. But
I think everybody is guilty of that. I think that's one of the things that drives the continued growth of the industry is the new and better mousetrap, right? I mean, we all want a new and better stove, and it's amazing. One of the things that's been amazing over the years is how the industry has evolved towards some of these new materials to make the products. Super lightweight stuff. I mean, you remember the old Coleman stoves that the 2-burner propane heavy stoves, and now you can get that stove that weighs probably 50, 60, 70% less than that original stove and is more efficient. So that's the one evolution I think that's pretty cool. And I do the same thing. I mean, being an insider, I get some pretty great deals, as you can imagine, but I started the rule a few years ago that if one new one comes in, 2 old ones got to go out because I do not need 5, 6 stoves.
Well, I can appreciate that. I have an old 3-burner stove. Do you remember when the old 3-burner came out and it was a dual fuel stove? I bought one of the very first ones, and I came very close to tossing it here about 3 years ago, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to refurbish it, and I carry it with me. It's an old Coleman stove. I just cannot part with it. Yeah. And even though
we all have favorites like that.
Yeah. Even though I no longer burn unleaded gasoline in it, which it accepts, I just love the aroma of the Coleman fuel. Just it's same thing when you, and I've got a couple old Coleman lanterns. They're about 20 years old. And that's the neat thing about camping equipment. You take care of that stuff, and it's going to take care of you for a very long time. They're not going to wear out as quick as automobiles are. Yeah. So, and that's
right.
We're
going to wear out before the gear wears.
Yeah, and I was going to say that was any piece of camping equipment that I've come across.
Yeah. I know I'm going to wear out before most of my gear wears out. So,
I got a question.
That's a good thing.
I got a question. So you talk about all this gear and out to the stores. My problem with that is, okay, there's a few individual outdoor stores. I'm talking like hiking and stuff, like REI kind of stores. There's REI, then there's mom and pops, and that's it. You can't find, I'd say 80% of the stuff you see in REI in a Sports Authority, which doesn't exist, or a Dick's or a Academy. You can't find that stuff. There is one place to sell. No, there's 2 places. There's Amazon and there's REI. And that's kind of my problem I have because I'll go to trail days or I'll go to the AT kickoff like me and Skip went to, and we'll see like these independent mom and pops. Like my friend who lives up in Asheville, he has a buddy who is Lightheart Gear. They do their own little thing just in Asheville. And I'm not exposed to that unless I go to trail days, unless I go to the AT kickoff, and I can't find stuff like that. I know it's really good stuff, and I see videos on YouTube about, different hikers and stuff. Oh, I got this. But everything's online, and I can never find it in stores, and that's kind of a problem I have. Like you say, there's all these great things, but I don't know about it, and you won't let me into it. It's kind of my same problem I have with CES.
Well, some of that's by design. I mean, that's not necessarily that you can't get in. You can get in. You can't get into the show unless you're in the industry, but you can get in and see the stuff in the various stores.
Like what stores besides REI? What stores besides REI for like?
Yeah. Well, there's you go to any outdoor specialty store. I mean, there's a bunch of not Dick's Sporting Goods, but the local outdoor shop, and they're not going to carry everything. but that's by design by the local store,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also possibly by design by the manufacturer. A lot of these manufacturers either don't want to grow and get big. They just want to keep their little business and make their few products and be very exclusive. They can charge more that way by being exclusive and being specialty. And they're not compromised by having to meet some of the requirements that some of these other big retailers have for, the operation side. Shipping to someone like REI or LL Bean is a whole nother game, because in order to run that thing efficiently, they have to have certain inflow and outflow requirements.
Yeah,
So a lot of it's, people don't want to grow, they don't want to get big, or they want to just go to a certain size and they want to keep it in the small stores. They don't want to let it go everywhere. Again, that's that specialty concept. We're going to sell to all the specialty outdoor retailers, but not REI or not LL Bean. So it's a lot of that is conscious decisions made by either the local shop or the brand itself, the shop. I was talking to a guy the other day, two guys actually. One guy is from Roof Nest, makes the pop-up tents that go on top of your vehicle. Another guy does Colorado teardrop trailers. Very cool products, but they purposely only sell direct to consumer, and they only go to events, and only a few events at that. They don't want all the headache, if you will, that comes with blowing up and becoming a big brand like A-Liner or something, or Airstream. They don't want that. They want to keep a small little business, custom stuff, very nice stuff. They can charge a little more and have a happy little life with their business.
What would you tell someone like me who wants to see that stuff and maybe, get an experience with it, to see if I want it? What would you tell someone like me how to do that? Because we don't have LL Bean down here. I know it's up in the Northeast, but literally all we have down here is REI and Bass Pro Shop, which I used to work at Bass Pro Shop, and they didn't have anything as far as camping gear. So what would you tell someone like me to do? I go to trail days and AT kickoff, and that's about it.
Yeah. I would go find there's a local outdoor retailer down there somewhere. I can't remember the name.
There's one in there's one off Highland Boulevard down in Atlanta, but it carries pretty much the same stuff as REI. There's a few little things, but it's pretty much the same. But hey, if you got suggestions, Skip's got my email. He'll shoot you an email and let me know.
Well, and I would go search online. A lot of these guys only have online business, right? There's that's just the way they do it. They don't want to be in REI. They don't want to be in the outdoor retailer shop. So I would go dig online and then keep doing what you're doing. Go to AT days. Go to some of those other events. PCT days out here if you can get out west. That's a good way to do it. But yeah, online's the best way to find any of the new cool stuff.
Well, Atlanta's a pretty big city, and I think Daniel and I are probably just going to have to get out a little bit more. Where we live right here, it's not too far away for us to go to any one of those places that we've talked about. So we'll get out there for sure.
I'll go through my list and email you guys a couple of local shops down there, Atlanta, Alabama, nearby. There's some great little shops down there.
Okay, sounds good, Rick. Well, listen, while we have a couple more minutes, tell us about the Outdoor Biz Podcast. You host a show where we talk about the outdoor recreation business, and tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, so the Outdoor Biz Podcast, I kind of stumbled into this podcasting thing. I got laid off from Low Pro a few years ago and was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? I'm getting a little up there in age. The outdoor industry is a little tougher to get into when you get advanced. Any industry does. And I was listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. Love his show. He interviews a bunch of great guests and has some pretty interesting conversations. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. I could just interview all the people I know in the outdoor industry. So I committed to doing about 3 or 5 episodes. I had all the recording and audio equipment from some of my photography projects. So I set it all up, did about 5 episodes, and had a blast. It was just super fun interviewing people. And I basically asked them how they got into the outdoors, how they got excited about the outdoor lifestyle, and then how they got into the industry, what was their first outdoor retail job. And they talk about that. And some of the stories are not only interesting, but amazing. Some people just stumble into the industry, and some people have a targeted, identified process that they go through because they want to work in the outdoor industry. So that's pretty fun. And then we talk a little bit about, some of their favorite books. I always ask everybody what their favorite piece of outdoor gear is under $100. And people have been super generous with their time. I think it's great for listeners because they can learn about the industry. They can learn about how to get in the industry if they want. There's a lot of great advice about that. It's also great for the folks that are already in the industry because there's a lot of great advice about if you do have a career, if you are working, as a customer service rep for JanSport or some of these brands, there's advice on how to grow your career and become a director of sales someday. I mean, that's how I did it. I was a kid on the shop floor at age 16 and ended up as, director of sales for some of these great brands. So it's great.
I'm going to go ahead and let our listeners know right off the bat that we have accepted your invitation to be on your show. And that's going to be coming up here in the very near future. And why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find your podcast at?
Yeah, you can go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com. It's available everywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Just search for theoutdoorbizpodcast.com. It'll show up. And love to have you listen. I look forward to having you guys on my show. That's going to be fun. I got a list of questions for you already.
All right. Daniel and I are locked and loaded. Okay. Rick, hey, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being on the Happy Camper Radio Show. And maybe you and I are going to run into each other out there someday. I mean, I know you're on the West Coast. Daniel and I here on the East Coast. But it's a big, wide open world. And campers always have a tendency to cross paths somewhere down the road.
That's right. It'll happen. I'll probably see you at Trail Days someday.
There you go.
There you go.
You won't have no problem finding Daniel. He does get around. Rick, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Daniel, it's always a pleasure having guests on the program.
Absolutely.
And it was a real pleasure to talk to Rick. And, folks, by the way, get a copy of his book. If you enjoy the outdoors, if you're an outdoors person like myself and Daniel's spouse, enjoy being out there, enjoying the sun, enjoying the rain, which, definitely, I don't want to say I enjoy the rain, but that's where you can find me when we go camping. You know that for certain.
Well, I think you need to go camping pretty soon. It's been pretty dry here lately. I think it's about time to, let the rain gods know that you want to go camping so we can get some rain here.
Daniel, and knock on wood.
There you go.
It's starting to cool off a little bit.
I know. That means burn season, baby.
Yeah, about another week here in Georgia. So
got it ready.
All right, yeah. You going to be allowed to burn this year?
I don't know. I got to ask you first.
No, you're not going to ask me. You better ask the wife after that last incident. We're not going to get into that.
Oh, gosh.
Daniel makes some awesome campfires. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, it's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Happy Camper Radio.
And this week, Daniel, we are going to go to the state of West Virginia. That is beautiful season up there to go camping in, especially this time of year.
Oh, definitely.
All right, yes. We're going to be going to the Blue Bend Recreation Area. It's part of the Monongahela National Forest, and it is our featured campground of the week. The Blue Bend Recreation Area is a quaint wooded area filled with plenty of hiking, picnicking, and camping opportunities. Constructed in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, the rustic wood tables and shelters appeal to many day and overnight visitors. The recreation area along the Anthony Creek has a selection of single-family campsites and 2 picnic shelters. The large group picnic shelter accommodates up to 75 people and can be reserved in a peak season. Daniel, there are some beautiful pictures on the website, and we're going to have a link to it all week long here on Happy Camper Radio. It's got a real rustic setting. It's in a wooded area. Got a beautiful lake there. If you're looking for a place that's just quiet and just a great place to get away to, this is a wonderful campground to consider. A lot of information right there on the website. Check it on out. They have flush toilets. Showers are available in the summer, and vault toilets can be used throughout the spring and fall seasons. Running water is also seasonal, but a hand pump is available through the spring and fall. Each site has a parking spur with a picnic table, campfire ring, trash bin, and lantern post. It's a beautiful campground, a wonderful campground to go camping in. You can get reservations right there online. Go to recreation.gov and just look for that little blue button up the upper right-hand corner. It says sign up. You can get yourself a free recreation.gov account. It makes your camping reservations go so much smoother once you have an account and you go to a recreation.gov campground. You can log in there anytime. Check out the thousands and thousands of beautiful campgrounds, and this is one to consider right here. It's the Blue Bend Recreation Area in the state of West Virginia, and it is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Skip and Daniel.
And if you have a campground you'd like for us to feature on the program, get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com. Be sure to include a link to the campground website. Well, Daniel, that's about going to wrap up today's edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show. And we've got another great interview lined up here in about the next week or so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Great people calling the show. And if you want to be on the program, get in touch with Daniel and I. We'll make that happen. Remember, friends, every pet deserves a loving home. I want you to do exactly like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker. Add us to circles on Google+. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. So is Daniel.
Woo-hoo.
Even though he wants to go camping in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you hang around with us long enough, folks, we will make a happy camper out of you. Talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye, everybody. This is Happy Camper Radio.
Happy Camper Radio.